Kelsey.
I'm Shay McGalley.
And I'm David Keener.
And this is the Hourlings Podcast Project. Today, we're going to be talking about time travel, and David's going to lead the discussion. David, take it away.
All right, time travel. We're going to have kind of about time travel, why people write it, what fascinates people about it, and I think we're going to cover a whole bunch of subjects. So just hang on to your time machine, and we'll get into it. First of all, what's the fascination with time travel? Why do we care?
Well, I think people would like a chance to rectify mistakes. That's been a common story for forever. And going back in time is one way that you can do it.
Yeah, I think one reason that we're fascinated with time travel is just the fascination with other dimensions, which humankind, from the dawn of time, has wanted there to be more than what we see, more than this reality, whether it's an afterlife or, just something else beyond a veil. Time travel, I think, doesn't explain it. It embodies that. It embodies having multiple dimensions.
And of course, one of the things I find fascinating about time travel is maybe I could go back in time and fix that miscue at the beginning of this podcast.
Nice, smoothly done. Very smoothly done.
Maybe this is the fixed one.
Nice how I fit that in, eh? All right.
I think it's also a sense of wanting to outlive, your mortality. I'm always like, dying sucks, but I think the biggest thing that sucks about it is you can't see all the cool things that science will do, 500 years from now, and all the cool discoveries we'll make. So the option of traveling forward in time gives us a glimpse into that very alluring mystery that we'll miss out on.
And I guess you see a lot more time travel stories going back in time than you do in the future.
Yeah, true.
Which I find interesting. And the first one was really H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, and it was clearly into the future.
Way into the future.
Way into the future. In my case, I feel like there's a certain fascination with what if. What if things unrolled differently? What if, and it could be a small what if, like what if my grandfather had lived? Or it could be a big what if, like what if President Lincoln hadn't been assassinated? Or what if, a war had gone differently, or, what if? I think that's part of the fascination with time travel.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we learn as storytellers is to analyze causation, cause and effect, so that when we create plots, we can have plausibility in what happens and the motivations of characters. But with what you're saying, Dave, is that, being able to go back in time and change something and then reassess how things would turn out. It's like we have building blocks already there that we just are eager to play with. I suppose for storytellers, that's a big appeal as well.
Yeah, and as I don't know. I think that comes under the heading of the next question. When it comes to time travel, what would drive you to write a time travel story? What kind of time travel story would you write?
Well, I actually have written a time travel novel. It's going to be released later this year. And it was amazing fun to write, but it frankly was the most complicated book I've ever written because of the time travel aspect associated with it. But it was a lot of fun to write, big time.
Nice.
And I actually started writing a time travel story. I was doing interlocking time loops. So one time loop wasn't enough for me, and it fell on the floor. I keep looking at it and thinking about picking up the pieces because I think there's a good story there. But boy, howdy, that one fell apart.
For me, if I want to write a book that visits the past or is set in the future, I'll probably just write a book that is, historical fiction or a fantasy with a medieval twist or a sci-fi in the future. I probably wouldn't write a time travel novel in order to visit those time periods. What I would write would be a book where a time machine exists. but there's a whole political grapple over the machine. I don't think I'd be as interested in the journey through time as I would be in the value of the machine and how people would react to it.
So I think I'm a little fascinated with, I mean, the choices that people make. So I think one of the best time travel novels I've read is a little story from Harry Turtledove called "The Guns of the South," in which time travelers go back in time and hand modern weapons to the Confederacy, which enables them to win the Civil War. But as it turns out in the book, the South ends up eventually outlawing slavery anyway, for a lot of really good and interesting reasons. And the author did a good job of capturing the characters from that time.
Was it Southern triumphalist?
Hmm?
Was it Southern triumphalist, in your opinion, like very lauding of the South?
No, it's really, it was more of a book about questions. How would people react if they were given the choice of deciding that they could use these weapons and win the war? And if they won the war, but they knew that history had gone a different way, what's the right thing to do? A lot of the characters in the story face some stark questions, and it's a really good, thoughtful book about a whole bunch of issues. And time travel allows those issues to be examined. That's what I find fascinating about time travel. All right. Now I'm going to give you a hard question. Are you guys ready?
Standing by.
I'm sitting down.
Okay. If you had a time machine, what would it be? I mean, a TARDIS, a Delorean, a funky looking device with lots of electronics and lights, a hot tub. I mean, the sky's the limit. What would your time machine be?
Well, the time machine that I created for my novel are actually portals. If you've seen the movie Time Bandits, for instance, that's probably the closest thing in any other in a movie that I've seen. A doorway filled with light, you go through, and you come out the other side in another time. It's more complicated than that, but that's the idea that I had for my novels. And basically, the time portal had to be created somewhere that always existed all along the existence of that portal. So they might create a time portal in a medieval monastery, for instance, so they could go back hundreds and hundreds of years or 1,000 years to the same exact place because that place existed then. But if the place didn't exist either then or in the future, that limits the amount of space that portal could go through.
For me, I would choose something handheld. I think that's more practical. I could smuggle it much more easily.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't make it too easy because I've seen like some time travel movies where dude's just wearing a watch,
Yeah,
and he goes. That makes it more complicated.
Oh, well, I didn't realize we were talking about
to do that.
I didn't realize we were talking about in our stories. I thought we were saying if you really had one.
No, if you really had one, right?
If you really had one, what would it look like? I mean, what kind of features would you want?
It would look like a Bop It. You guys ever see Bop It? Those old.
Like
oh my
this?
gosh! Yes, exactly. It would look like a Bop It. That's mine.
You know, my roommate in college invented this.
You're kidding.
That's
my
his
hero.
voice in there.
He's my hero. I want to meet him. I hope he's watching right now.
See, I don't know what mine would be. I kind of like the dramatics of Back to the Future, where you have to get your car up to 88 miles an hour before the portal works.
Yeah.
Of course, that's a little hard when the ground is 50 feet lower back in the past. Or
Yeah, I like the idea of a machine that can fly, like not necessarily a spaceship, but something that can get off the planet and it, appears in the atmosphere of the planet, figures out where it is, and then you can go places.
Well, there's something to be said for that, because a lot of times time travel stories, people are like, trapped where they are, and it's like, a lengthy journey on horseback, if you can afford a horse to get to wherever you want to go.
Right. Or they have a car that needs gasoline. That's a bad plan.
Yeah.
But then it has, what was it, Basomatic, the nuclear thing he installed on it from the future. That's pretty awesome too.
Mr. Fusion.
Yeah, Mr. Fusion, that's it.
I still want one of those. Save on power. All right.
Yeah, I was at a book signing here in Fredericksburg last summer, and there was a guy there that actually had a DeLorean tricked out like Back to the Future. It's pretty awesome.
Nice.
There was one at Worldcon in Dublin a couple of years back. They had it all roped off, so you couldn't get too close to it to take your photos. But yeah, it was tricked out like Back to the Future.
Yeah, there was such a gimmick for this guy. He wrote time travel books, and if you bought all of his books, the whole set, you could sit in his DeLorean and he'd take your picture with your own phone and stuff.
Oh wow, that
actually
is
a pretty good
very
Rat bastard, that's a great idea.
very savvy.
Now, if only I had 80 grand to buy a DeLorean and fix it up.
My grandfather was selling a DeLorean. It was his car for many years throughout the 80s, and he held on to it until like the 2010s. And he had me put it on Craigslist and be the one to talk to the potential buyers, because he's not very tech savvy. So I had all sorts of people, interested in, for that reason, interested in the car and asking for pictures. And so yes, I have a very strong connection to DeLorean as well, because I sold it to a stranger on Craigslist.
Oh, well done. All right, so when it comes to motivations for characters in our stories, why would these folks want to go back in time? What would they want to do? And
well,
why?
there's a lot of big motivations I've seen. Go back for money, invest in the past. Go back and right a wrong. The classic go back and kill Hitler kind of thing. And or go back and create havoc. I've seen stories like that too, which is also kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it, but I guess the only other one that maybe you didn't cover, Marty, is just like tourism. People,
right. The TV series Fringe had disaster tourism in it.
Yeah.
And I can think of another one, romance. There's been a lot of time travel romance things.
Yeah, people go get into a time machine just to find someone to roll around with.
Because they've fallen in love with someone.
Oh, yeah, they go back to find them.
Actually, one of the...
Have you read Outlander?
No.
Is it Outlander?
Outlander is not a... oh, no, Outlander is a time travel story. Yeah, it's romance time travel.
Yeah,
too.
romance time travel. Through stone circles.
This one, Time Scout by Robert Asprin and Linda Evans, had natural gateways to the past. You just had to find them and stuff. But they had what they called zipper tours to Rome. You had to have your shots before and after because of your exploits in the past. I'll leave it there, but that wasn't the main crux of the story. It was part of the tourism aspect of
tourism
time.
And also, academic research. Can you imagine what the field of history would be like in academia if time machines were usable? Like, what sort of... You couldn't be a historian without using a time machine. No one would trust what you would say. It would become the standard. Did you take the time machine? Did you observe it yourself?
Well, I could see also problems with that. The number of people who'd want to go back and look at and interpret or reinterpret or whatever religious events in the past, I would probably want to contradict those, not contradict, wall off those areas so people might not want to cause religious wars.
Yeah, the time travel anthology I published, The Witness Paradox, has a story in it that is exactly that. A guy is going to go back in time to witness the resurrection of Christ. And before he can tell anybody what happened, he gets assassinated.
We mean whether it happened or not?
Right, exactly. Because of that, exactly what you're talking about, David.
Right. So somebody went and did time travel to eliminate him from returning with the
info.
Yeah, before he even left.
Interesting.
For me, I would like to be able to see historical events. You know, I'm thinking, for instance, the Battle of Trafalgar, the greatest, most lopsided naval win of all time, and maybe just maybe whisper in Horatio in Nelson's ear, "Dude, time to duck," because he was assassinated during the battle by a sniper's bullet. But I can see people having lots of different motivations for going back.
Yeah, one of the concepts in time travel stories is the ripple effect of going back and saving someone, or accidentally causing the death of someone else, or even the death of a small animal. That's the plot of The Sound of Thunder. The
Footprints of Thunder, something like that.
No,
I know what you mean.
There Was a Sound of Thunder, I think was the name of it. Anyways, they made a movie of that too. Some guy goes back. They're going on hunting expeditions to kill giant dinosaurs. All these expeditions happen the day before the giant meteor impact. So they can kill all the dinosaurs they want, but they have to be careful never to step off the path. Some dude steps off the path and kills a butterfly. And it completely destroys the future. It's a pretty wild story.
Is that what they call the butterfly effect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that story was the genesis of that.
I don't think so, because
that's the hurricane thing. A butterfly wing in Africa starts a hurricane in North America.
Oh, I see.
That story far predated the idea of the butterfly effect entering the mainstream.
Mm.
Yeah, time travel conundrums, man. There's all kinds of them.
So let's talk about time travel in a minute for just time travel basics. One of the first things I think that you have to think about when you're doing a time travel story is it immutable?
Yeah, what are your rules?
Yeah, what are your rules?
And you have to decide what the rules are in detail and then be consistent with them. And there's lots of examples of different kinds, like Back to the Future. Everybody's seen Back to the Future. They can go into the past and change something, and it will impact you, or the newspaper that you're carrying, or the photos of your brothers and sisters. And so that's one theory. Anything you do in the past can change the future, including your own future. There's another theory of that shows up like in the movie Terminator. You go back in time, you may try to change something, but you can't. Nothing gets changed. Everything still rolls out exactly the way it was always going to roll out. That was the premise of the TV show Time Tunnel. I know I'm showing my age now. Every week they'd go, on another adventure, and the Titanic would still sink, or whatever the event was that they got dropped into. There's nothing they could do to change the outcome. So that's a different theory of time travel. Absolute time. there's other ones. What was the time travel episode in Star Trek?
The City on the Edge of Forever.
That was a great episode. Might be my favorite episode. And that episode was, well, if you went back in time and you just changed a little thing here or there, not much impact on the future. I think they talked about it like dropping a pebble into a river. You know, the flow of the river doesn't change at all. But if you dropped a giant ass boulder, it could completely redirect the entire river if the boulder was big enough. And so that was very interesting. But that also was kind of the Back to the Future model, because when they came through the portal again, the Enterprise was gone. The Federation never existed. And so they went back in time and they had to stop Bones from doing the thing. And it was a hard thing.
Well, the Hourlings story.
Great episode. I'm reluctant to do spoilers of it.
Yeah, I don't want to do spoilers either. But the crux of the episode is an ethical choice that somebody has to make. And
those always make for really, really, really good stories. Is the dilemma, you know, do I save, you know, this one person, or it's the trolley car dilemma, you know?
Oh, I mean, how hard would it, you know, people always say, go back and kill baby Hitler, but then you're holding a baby in your arms. You know, how do you, I don't know, how do you put a knife in a baby?
Well, and that's where I think we've talked about both ends so far. On one end of the spectrum, time is immutable. On the other end, every little thing that you do could make wild changes in the future. Somewhere in the middle is the idea that time is resilient, and that if you make small changes, they will just sort of automatically work their way back to the norm. But there's also kind of a corresponding idea that there could be focal points in history where a little change could still cause major repercussions in the future. And that's kind of interesting too. So maybe it's not killing Hitler that would do something to drastically change the future. Maybe it would be, you know, killing somebody's wife.
Well,
you know, something like that.
Now, no spoilers, but that was the entire premise of this season of Picard. You know, they had to go back into the past and fix the thing. They had to figure out what the thing was first. And it turned out to be a little tiny, tiny thing. And, you know, if they didn't do it right, you know, the future was going to be, you know, the Federation was going to be all Nazis, basically. But that was the whole season's work, you know, cue shenanigans.
And I think I like that idea too of spending a bit more time, because I feel like a lot of times the time travel is used as sort of a MacGuffin to save somebody's life or to make a point. And what I liked about The City on the Edge of Forever, which you talked about a minute ago, is the ethical choices that people had to make. And they were in the past, but they found things that were cool and attractive about the past, even though they were from a future with, you know, more medicine, more technology, you know, et cetera, et cetera. They still found things to value in the past. And I think that's one of the cool aspects of time travel, if you can get it across. Shay?
I've not seen this episode. I have nothing to say.
we can fix that.
Oh, yes, we can. We can do a party. I'm down.
All right. I think we've already figured out, let's see, the grandfather paradox isn't so great for stories anymore. True or false?
Yeah, it's been done too much.
Yeah,
in writing.
Would need a pretty big twist, I think.
Yeah, for the
a new premise for time travel. I have recently read Stephen King's time travel book called 11/22/63. Have you guys read this at all? It's a time travel thing that takes place. The dude travels back in time to just before the Kennedy assassination. And he does his damnedest to try to change the outcome, to to save Kennedy, and change everything. And he finds in that time doesn't want to be changed. So shit starts happening to him with no explanation. Why the hell do I have 4 flat tires? He can't get there in time to do
time fighting back, huh?
And yeah, time's pushing back. And
Yes.
it was a pretty good story, although it was a little too long.
That's sort of along the lines of time is resilient. One of the
Well, in that story, it was not only resilient, it was almost conscious. It was like preventing him from making a radical change in time.
So one of the interesting things about this series is, which is more of an adventure time travel type series, is that time is not quite immutable. It's very resistant. But you can change little things and it doesn't matter. You could change, Hitler's bodyguard and it wouldn't matter. You could kill a particular commander in a war, it probably wouldn't matter. But the thing that they had to watch out for was a focal point. Nobody necessarily knew what a historical focal point was. And if you tried to shoot for instance, somebody who was a focal point, even if you didn't know that they were a focal point, your gun would blow up or something would happen or whatever. The time stream would practically fight you on that.
All right, I want to talk about some time travel stories that are not hard sci-fi for our viewers who are interested in time travel just across the board.
Okay.
They do exist. One of them is A Christmas Carol, by Charles Dickens.
Yes.
The future.
Good stuff.
Yeah. That's a classic. I really enjoy that one every year. And another one Disney put out for kids called Meet the Robinsons. It was a very good movie. It's animated. And yeah, you all can shake your heads and now I can talk.
I haven't seen that. And I've seen most Disney.
No, I know. I'm pulling your leg because I didn't know the Star Trek episode, so now I get to talk about things you don't know.
I had never heard about Meet the Robinsons until a short time ago, where it was pointed out to me that it was a really, really great movie.
Yeah.
It's one I've never seen.
Yeah, well, it's again, I won't do a spoiler, but it's about
I'm making a note.
Yay! We'll have a movie night, Hourlings movie night. It's about an orphan who the movie starts in our time, and as the movie progresses, there's some time travel, and he runs into someone who is from the future. I no spoilers, but eventually he becomes this great inventor that brings about the future, and so it's really a hopeful story about hanging in there. It ends with him meeting himself as an older man. And the older man says, it's going to be all right. Just keep inventing. You're gonna find a family. I mean, it's really sweet, as Disney always is. But it's really about hanging in there even when it's tough, because it's going to be okay in the end. And so I love stories like that. I love time travel like that.
Another great time travel I loved as a kid was the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court.
Okay.
That was really awesome. I love that premise. And the idea of a dude going back who's a really competent guy now, going back with knowledge, is a really engaging premise.
Well, and L. Sprague de Camp took that and wrote a story called A Lest Darkness Fall, which is about a modern guy, a historian, being propelled back in time. And the Dark Ages are about to fall. Where he's at is about to be invaded, and civilization is going to go under, and he decides it's not going to happen because he's not going to let it. And it's a neat story about a modern man changing history and preventing that from happening. Also with a little bit of humor too.
Humor is great in time travel. I mean, I like the third Men in Black is about time travel. Very funny series. So yep. I like humor. Humor and time travel.
Time machine.
Exactly. It's a good mix.
Now that is my idea of a time machine. Traveling in style and comfort.
Yeah, man. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'll ring off of something else you said with A Christmas Carol. Most of the time travel we've been talking about is somebody physically going back into the past or maybe the future, but A Christmas Carol is more like witnessing alternatives,
Past coming to you, yeah.
or seeing how things could turn out. It's information being transferred and not necessarily a person going back in time. I haven't seen a lot of stories like that, but it seems to me like another possibility. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know if I would call Christmas Carol is so short I mean, as far as Charles Dickens novels goes, I can call that a time travel story, but I'm thinking of, like, you know, Harry Potter using the pensive to go back and observe the past. Yeah, I wouldn't call Harry Potter a time travel story. So
well, Harry Potter had time turners.
There could, and time turners. There could be time travel.
They went back in time so they could save Buckbeak.
Right.
They couldn't use it to save Dumbledore, though.
But I still wouldn't call it a time travel story. So I'm saying there could be time travel features in fantasies or sci-fis, but that doesn't necessarily make it a time travel story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll agree with that. In Harry Potter, I think it was a feature and not the focus of the story. And there was no indication that time travel could be used on a larger scale to go back in time and stop Voldemort before he was, resurrected or whatever.
Well, if I recall, I think the theory of time in Harry Potter's world was immutable as well. Maybe,
yes,
yeah,
it was.
I think so. So
interesting. All right,
anyway.
loops.
Say again?
Time loops. How do we feel about time loops?
Love them. Groundhog Day is one of my all-time favorite movies.
They're fun. They're fun.
I have seen many movies with the same kind of premise. Another one of my favorites, science fiction-wise, is a movie titled 1201. 1201 is the time that the thing happens. And that's another great one that I just really enjoy.
Yeah, I've seen a lot more time loop movies than I've seen time loop books. The only time loop book that I can recall, and I encountered it in '72, which shows you how old I am, is something called Dinosaur Beach by Keith Laumer. And part of the story is he's actually it takes him a while to figure out that he's in a time loop, and then it takes him longer to figure out how to get out of it.
Yeah, there's a couple different kinds of time loop stories. There's the infinite loop, where someone may be trapped in there for all eternity, which is kind of a nightmare. And then there is a time travel story where somebody loops back on itself, where, I was there already once. I got to sneak around so that I don't see, Marty, in the 50s, because I was already here once, so I got to hide and stuff like that. So that's another interesting time loop kind of thing, where it's just a redundant loop, but only a single loop, not a closed loop.
Right. And that's been done fairly recently too. Netflix, for the life of me, I can't remember the movie with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh yeah, he goes back and visits himself as a little kid. What the hell is the name of that movie? Shit, I just saw that movie too.
I don't remember.
It's one of those things I enjoyed it, but didn't think it was one for the ages.
Yeah, it was all right. I should have had IMDb up here. Then I could seem way smarter.
Well, I try to do some of my research up front, but even then I find myself stretching for something. Maybe I'm getting old, I don't know. All right.
Well, the science fiction novel that I'm writing actually is kind of a time loop story. This guy goes through he has a really shitty bad day, but he survives. Gets to the end of the day, he lives. But then Act 2 starts. He realizes, hey, I gotta help myself survive this day. So it's he himself is sneaking around, setting things in motion so that he himself can survive the day. And then something else happens in Act 3. So
Ryan Reynolds' movie was The Adam Project.
The Adam Project. That's it. Did you remember or look it up?
He's not telling.
I'll confess, I looked it up. God,
The wonders of technology. Oh, I have my phone sitting.
Memory's not what it used
I could have done it on my phone.
All right. So with my last question, and we may have covered some of this already. Tell me your favorite time travel book or movie. And if you've already talked about one, then give me another one.
Well, my favorite books, there is an entire series called the Time Wars series by Simon Hawke. And it is, I don't know how many books are in that collection, probably, 15 books. And it's very interesting because it goes back to specific events in the past. And it turns out there was time travelers there the whole time. And the thing is that it'll be a very well-known story, because like one of my favorites is called the Ivanhoe Gambit. And it takes the same plot that's in Ivanhoe, the book, but it looks at it through a different lens, and it's really fun. And he does that on several different ages and plots, and it's a really fun series. It's called Time Wars by Simon Hawke.
My favorite was nominated for an Oscar, Arrival. It's one of the few sci-fis that make it to, being nominated for Best Picture. And if I explain too much as to why it's time travel, it'll be very spoilery. But it's a very well-made movie about a UFO that doesn't land, it hovers right above Earth. And so then the government sends expert linguists to try to communicate with these intelligent aliens. But it's just crafted with such, the music and the pacing of the movie builds anticipation better than any movie I've ever seen. You are just on the edge of your seat by the time they open that door and walk up to see the aliens. Very well made movie and very thoughtful movie, very thought provoking. The time travel part is the thought provoking part. So hate to be vague booking, vague potting, I guess I'm doing now, but that's my favorite.
It was based on a story by a renowned author, Ted Chiang, who's won about every science fiction award that there is. And it was directed by Denis Villeneuve, the guy who did Blade Runner 2049 and Dune. So yeah, he's.
Did he also direct Dune, the new one?
Yes.
I love this man. I don't know who he is, but I love him already.
All right, so mine is a book, and there's a lot of good time travel stories. What I like about this one is it's a good time travel kind of adventure story that has spawned a huge series. It's called 1632 by Eric Flint, and the premise is that some kind of wild accident happens, and the entire town of Grantville, West Virginia, is not only thrown back into the past, but it is also translocated and replaces an area of Germany in 1632, when the situation is very, very bad there. So what do you do when a town of, thousands of people ends up in the past and brings with them things like the Constitution, modern day views of right and wrong, and lawfulness. Firearms, technology, and how much difference can 10 or 20,000 people make in the past? I mean, against the whole world, and it has spawned a series. The core of the series is a bunch of books done by Eric Flint and some other writers like David Weber. But it's also like the world's largest shared universe, because they've invited all kinds of other authors in it. So they have anthologies of stories set in that world. They even went and defined the name of every person in Grantville and what their specialty was, so people wouldn't keep creating like super soldiers and populating their stories with them. So it's a cool series. It's a cool community. It's probably the oddest, because of that, it's probably the oddest of my time travel selections, but it's a pretty good series.
Good stuff, guys.
And with that,
It might be
Mark?
time to stop this episode.
Think
See
so.
what I did there?
Okay, then. We will see you next time.